the steady, luminous hand of Florence's late 15th century. He built an empire of workshops and frescoes, turning civic patrons and pious donors into actors in carefully staged narratives. Ghirlandaio's fresco cycles, most famously in the Tornabuoni and Sassetti chapels, combine clear storytelling, eye for costume and street detail, and portraits so vivid they read like living documents of Renaissance Florence. He trained generations of assistants, and one of those pupils, a young Michelangelo, would carry elements of Ghirlandaio's observational discipline into the next great wave of Italian art. Most of all, Domenico mastered two languages: the monumental fresco, public and communal, and the intimate painted portrait, private and polished. His work feels modern because it records ordinary faces and daily textures, the brocades, the carpets, the dogs, and even the cats, without losing a sense of sacred purpose. In the space of a chapel wall or a painted panel, he could hold both the city and the divine. Stay with us, and you'll hear how Ghirlandaio shaped a visual world and created some of the most persuasive human images of the Renaissance. Before we dive in, don't forget to like and subscribe. Your support helps us keep creating more educational videos like this one. Domenico di Tommaso Bigordi, known to history as Ghirlandaio, was born and worked in Florence in the mid-1400s. He came from a family of painters and quickly established a prolific workshop that handled large fresco cycles, altarpieces, and portraits. Ghirlandaio's studio model is essential to understand his art. Several hands collaborated under a single guiding vision, which allowed him to accept public commissions across the city while maintaining consistent figural types and compositional clarity. He kept careful inventories of costumes and props, and he placed donors and contemporaries within biblical scenes so that prayer and public memory were intertwined. That practical, organizational energy helped his workshop flourish and trained the next generation of Florentine painters. You can spot his signature presence in small self-referential details, self-portraits embedded in chapel scenes, and in studio-produced panel portraits that combine precision drawing with richly painted surfaces. One of Domenico's major achievements is the fresco cycle for the Tornabuoni Chapel in the Church of Santa Maria Novella. These walls present episodes from the life of John the Baptist, birth, visitation, and other episodes, rendered with an almost cinematic clarity. The birth of St. John the Baptist scenes capture everyday gestures and domestic detail. Women carrying fruit, servants on stairs, garments folded and layered with attentive craft. In the Visitation panels, the meeting of Mary and Elizabeth becomes a social stage where Florentine citizens and fashionable dress are carefully integrated. Ghirlandaio's fresco technique emphasizes clarity over painterly bravura, crisp contours, coherent architecture, and carefully observed faces. The result is a narrative that feels immediate and historically specific, a civic mirror that could be read by any visitor to the chapel. Across town, the Sassetti Chapel shows a different but related strength: the ability to stage sacred episodes as civic dramas. The Adoration of the Shepherds in the Sassetti Chapel and other works there place donors and family members within devotional scenes so that public piety and private commemoration coexist. In these compositions, Ghirlandaio excels at combining concentrated devotional feeling with busy, believable surroundings. Shepherds and angels, merchants and townsfolk, and even a little domestic animal life tucked into the margins. He could move effortlessly from the quiet intimacy of the Holy Family to a large public feast of narrative detail, and in doing so, he created frescoes that function both as sermons and as social records. If Ghirlandaio's frescoes make Florence legible, his portraits make individual lives palpable. The portrait of Giovanna Tornabuoni stands among the most celebrated, a three-quarter bust rendered with exquisite care to costume, skin tone, and ornament. Here we see hair nets, pearls, and embroidered garments recorded like a ledger of luxury and identity. Other panel portraits from his workshop, Portrait of a Lady and similar bust-length images, show the same calm, yet sculptural modeling and a steady gaze that balances idealization and personal specificity. Ghirlandaio's portraits often include a parapet or a narrow window opening onto landscape, a compositional device that sets sitter and world in relation and gives viewers a sense of presence. donors and civic figures are portrayed with a dignified sobriety that nevertheless records the texture of their clothes and the particularities of their faces. These works helped cement Ghirlandaio's reputation among Florence's elite, who wanted painted likenesses that recorded both status and humanity. Beyond frescoes and portraits, Ghirlandaio painted altarpieces and Sacra Conversazione, Madonna and Child enthroned between saints, where he combined bright color, careful patterning, and stable, symmetrical compositions. Works like the Madonna and Child enthroned held in Florentine collections reveal his fondness for patterned carpets, ornate textiles, and a quiet dignity in the saintly figures. These altarpieces are notable for their clarity of space. The throne, the figures, and the floor form a measured stage where gestures and gazes are carefully arranged. Even in these devotional panels, there is an attention to worldly detail, an oriental carpet, a carved throne, a whisper of domestic light that grounds the sacred scene in a recognizable contemporary setting. Domenico's reputation carried beyond Florence. In Rome, he contributed a panel to the Sistine Chapel, the calling of the first apostles, where his narrative clarity fit the program of papal painting. Back in Florence, he produced several Last Supper compositions for refectories and churches. These wall scenes reveal his mastery of group composition, how to place figures at a table, how to choreograph hands and faces so that theological meaning and human interaction read at once. Compared to contemporaries who favored extreme dramatics, Ghirlandaio's Last Suppers keep a calm order. The drama is contained within carefully observed gestures, architectural perspective, and convincing table settings. These works show how adept he was at managing scale and narrative across very public surfaces. Ghirlandaio's St. Jerome paintings offer another side of his practice: contemplative, bookish, rich in small, telling details. Jerome sits in a study, surrounded by books, a lion, and the humble implements of scholarship. These images demonstrate Domenico's ability to render interior space and texture, the worn leather of a book, a carved bench, the tiled floor, with the same precision he applied to a lady's veil or a nobleman's brocade. He and his workshop also produced drawings and studies, careful sheets of drapery and costume designs that testify to the preparatory discipline behind every fresco and panel. Those studies are a reminder that Ghirlandaio's seeming ease came from meticulous observation and planning. What explains Domenico Ghirlandaio's long shadow? First, sheer productivity and public visibility. His fresco cycles were central features of major Florentine chapels and civic spaces. Second, his workshop model trained an unusually strong cohort of artists, among them Ridolfo del Ghirlandaio, his sons and apprentices, and famously a teenage Michelangelo who worked in his studio and absorbed key lessons in drawing, narrative clarity, and the portrayal of costume. Third, his art preserved a documentary quality, a sense that clothing, architecture, even small animals should be recorded as signs of time and place. That documentary impulse influenced how Renaissance art represented modern life, making Ghirlandaio a bridge between Guild-style craft and an emerging taste for realism. His painted faces continue to feel immediate because they were made to look like the people who actually lived in Florence. Domenico Ghirlandaio does not always command the same name recognition as some of his more flamboyant contemporaries, but his art still rewards patient looking. In his frescoes, you can read civic life and devotional practice together. In his portraits, you can measure fashion, personality, and social ambition. And in his workshop, we can trace the teaching methods that shaped the next generation. Visit a Tornabuoni wall or stand before a Giovanna Tornabuoni portrait, and you experience a painter who cared about people, how they dressed, how they moved, how they prayed. His combination of narrative precision, human sympathy, and technical control makes him a defining figure of the Quattrocento. Next time you look at a 15th century Florentine face, remember, Ghirlandaio taught the city to see itself.